Hi everybody, this is Noelle from Petitti's and we're here at Oakwood Village and we're going to do a plant spotlight on Clematis or Clematis or however you like to say it. We don't mind. I'm going to tell you first of all the details here. So everything that you need to site them well. First of all, most of your Clematis can take a part shade to full sun aspect. If you have lighter colored Clematis like the pastel colors, I would tell you to site them in a little bit more shade because that color will stay nice and true and vibrant. If you put the pastel colors in the full sun, they tend to fade a lot faster. So think about that when you're siting your Clematis. The second thing is soil. Now with Clematis, like most of the plants that we have you plant, we want them to be in well-drained soil, amended with your planting mixes or your compost or what have you, any organic matter, so it drains well. Drainage is key with Clematis because they tend to get a wilt disease right late spring, early summer, and you have to watch out for that, especially if it's not draining well. So these guys do great in that well-drained soil that's been amended, or they do very, very well in container gardens as like that thriller, a centerpiece in a larger container, mixed container. So think about that when you're planting it, okay? The other thing with these guys is water. So first year, you're gonna do the standard watering. It's gonna be 1 inch of water once a week, thoroughly and deeply if you don't have rainfall. If you do have rainfall, you're just supplementing what you're missing from the rainfall, okay? Fertilizer. They love to be fed, but you're really looking at a slow release fertilizer. We usually use plant tone and iron tone on them twice a season, once in the spring and then once midsummer, and they are done for the season. If for whatever reason your Clematis is not flowering well for you, you could always try to supplement a little bit of triple phosphate in the spring and midsummer to try to get them to push a little bit more bud and bloom cycle for you. So that's something to consider just as an additive, but if they're blooming great for you, you don't have to worry about it, okay? The other thing, and I mentioned this earlier with the wilt disease. It's very, very common, so just be aware that it may happen, and it looks like their Clematis plant just dies back. It just completely browns, everything looks terrible, and you think, I lost it. They actually will come out of the disease and grow out of the disease, but here's the key. You want to make sure, if you've seen this happen before on Clematis, to treat them with a copper fungicide spray, typically mid to late May or early June, but I like the earlier spraying schedule because you're trying to prevent that wilt from happening. There's another thing that you can do, believe it or not, is you can actually plant your Clematis about 2 inches deeper in the soil, and we rarely recommend this for any of our plant material in Northeast Ohio, especially in our clay soil. But if you're amending that soil really well and you know that it's draining out, you can plant your Clematis about 2 inches deeper and cover the crown, okay, with soil. And that actually will help prevent that wilt from occurring, okay? So keep that in mind when you're planting. As far as pruning Clematis goes, you're really treating it kind of like a Macrophylla hydrangea or a rose. I really like the wait and see what comes out. So you wait for the plants to start flushing their new foliage. If you see green at the bottom and everything else is brown, you cut to just above that lower green portion that's flushing out. If you see green midway up through the vine, then you just take the top portion down, okay? If you see green growing, flushing all the way up the vine, then you're just doing a little trimming here and there, maybe shearing off some winter damaged parts, taking out some of the dry parts in the middle, okay? So your Clematis is gonna tell you where to prune. Ultimately, your earlier blooming Clematis, the ones that bloom in May, are typically the ones that you are going to do very light pruning on. The ones that bloom in June, maybe like a medium type pruning where you would cut halfway, clean up. The ones that are later bloomers, like July, August, September, those are the ones that you typically cut down to the ground, okay? So just keep that in mind when you are pruning, early season as they flush out. I'm going to tell you, I think they're great winter interest, so you can keep them growing up on and stay on the trellises. They provide a windbreak. So again, it's really up to you. And then I did want to add one final note with planting these guys. Foliage and flower in the sun and feet in the shade. So it's always really good to keep them mulched. So don't forget you're mulching after you're planting, about 1 to 2 inches of mulch around them to keep their feet cool, or underplant them with some annuals or perennial ground cover. That will keep their feet cool, and they love that. Other than that, you've got your sun, your soil, your watering, your fertilizer. So let's talk about varieties. Now, many of the varieties that we grow have been bred by Raymond Evison. He is a lovely Englishman who has award-winning clematis. And what's great about his clematis varieties is he has tall, he has short, he has repeat bloomers. He has some that will bloom early in the season, and then their second flush of bloom will be a little bit later in the season. He's got some that just keep on going and going and going. So they really are, just marvels as far as clematis are concerned. And I'm going to show you a few varieties here that we love. Some of these clematis bloom in May, some bloom in June. Some bloom mid-season, like July bloomers. Some are real late, like sweet autumn clematis. So again, you can grow so many different types of clematis and just have color all throughout the growing season. I did forget to say one thing, support. Support is key with clematis. They really would prefer to have a trellis, an arbor, something to grow up. You can even plant them at the base of, let's say, a hybrid tea rose that sort of has kind of, if you will, bare legs, and they'll grow up the rose, not affect the plant at all. The rose will continue to bloom and grow well, but they can just kind of fill in the bottom of that rose bush. They work really well on lilacs, because lots of times our lilacs are real foliage and colorful at the top, but the base again has those like bare legs or bare knees. So clematis will grow up and vine up those. So anything that will support them, that's really good to use. They can crawl on the ground as a ground cover, but again, they can get a little bit wet on the ground. They tend to get a little bit more of like powdery mildew disease growing on the ground. So that's why we would think support, get them upright, let them climb, and also they're getting good air circulation around the vine. So that's something to consider as well. Lots of different varieties here. Rainbow of colors, really, truly. Charmaine is a beautiful deep burgundy red. You have Viennetta, and I want to show you this one because it's got small flowers, but the first flowering on Viennetta is kind of this starry sort of greenish, pastel green and purple. And then look at the second flowering on this plant. So it's the same plant, but it's this doubled lime green. So again, these are just bred to be fantastic out there in the garden. We've got all different colors here. Bernadine. Bernadine's one of those pastel blues. She does really well in part shade condition. Beautiful red eyelashes, if you will. Fleuri is a dark, dark purple, gorgeous, dark purple eyelashes, dark purple petals. Taylor's going to show you a picture of this, but this is Diamantina, and she is this doubled, she almost looks like a dahlia, if you will, sort of a periwinkle purple, but she grows 7 foot tall. So she's really tall, filled with these beautiful doubled flowers. I've got a double pink, like a striped pink, Cherokee and Abeline. Just depends which one you like better. They're both a little bit compact, like a 3 to 5 foot size. So kind of shorter in the garden or great for containers, no problem. Filigree is a true dwarf. So we're talking 1 to 2 foot, really, really short, kind of bushy. You could leave it on the ground if you wanted to, it would do just fine. This one is one of Taylor's favorites. This is Sarah Elizabeth, and she is a mottled pink. You have to look at her close up. She has beautiful red eyelashes, but her petals have like a white splash on them. They're so pretty. And then look at Zara. Oh my gosh. Zara is in her full bloom here in early June, and tons of buds. She's kind of one of those that just kind of keeps on repeat blooming. Now I want to tell you, with flowering, typically the flowers will last about 3 to 4 weeks. But the key here with any of these Evison varieties is clip those flowers. If you go ahead and deadhead, you're going to be putting more energy into the plant to produce more blooms. So the more you deadhead, the better it's going to continue to bloom for you, okay? Clematis flowers do great as a cut flower. You can float them in like a small, just like fish bowl, a little bit of water, go ahead and float them. They last for a very long time. So they really are, they make a great cut flower. They're good for pollinator attracting. They're fairly good as far as deer resistance, but you have to watch out early season when they're just starting to fill out and flush. That tender foliage can get nibbled on. So be aware of that. But other than that, they're just beautiful, upright growing vines that really do a wonderful service for us in the garden, giving us vertical interest, giving us a lot of color choices. And again, you can put them in a container garden too. Enjoy.